What's up, everyone? Welcome to another Sales Hacker webinar. I've been waiting a while for this one, and I'm really jazzed about it. The title has some bold claims, for sure. How to beat Elon Musk and Bill Gates. 3 steps to master LinkedIn, video, and email for cold outreach. Now, before I introduce my awesome guest, a few housekeeping matters. So, number one, this will be recorded. So we'll be sending out the recording after. So if you have to jump off or you want to share it out with a colleague, we will get this over to you. So don't worry. If you haven't been on a Sales Hacker webinar before, we love it to be super interactive. So jump on, ask questions throughout. Any relevant questions we will pepper in throughout this conversation. But some we may have to wait till the end. We'll do a little Q&A and try and get through as many as possible. But okay, so before I introduce quickly, if you want to go to the side and tell us your name, title, and where you're from, maybe we'll do some fun little shout outs. But all right, that's out of the way. For an introduction of one of my favorite people, truly, I am joined by Delius Wilson, also known as DW. Who is the VP of Sales at GetAccept. DW, welcome, my man.
Fantastic. Thanks for having me. And shout out to the Sales Hacker community. We've been looking forward to this day for a long time.
Love it. Love it. Well, let's see who we have. Okay, so we have Carl DuPont from Exton, Pennsylvania. Love it. We have Kirthan Shetty. We have Evan Kennedy. Charlie Murillo from Honduras in the house. That's cool. Yeah. Nicholas Shields, Austin, Texas. We got Naples, Florida, holding it down. I love it. South America, Melissa, hello. Awesome. Well, thank you all for joining us. Let's kind of get into this. So again, super pumped to have you. Do you want to quickly run through the agenda there, DW? What we're going to be covering today?
Yeah, so I've had a fantastic introduction. We're going to look at the state of sales and some of the findings that Scott and I believe are pertinent to you guys there. And then we're going to look at what we all came here to see, which is what is this strategy that you can implement to beat people like Elon Musk and Bill Gates on LinkedIn. Then I'm going to examine how we can actually turn connection requests into meetings, which I know is a pain point for all of us in sales. We're going to run through my favorite cold email play, which can support this activity on LinkedIn. And finally, we're going to look at the role of video. And I know there's a lot of buzz around video right now, but I wanted to touch on how you should do it right and where people are also doing it wrong. Sound good, Scott?
I love it. I love it. Let's dive into it.
And just to let you all know as well is that throughout this webinar, there's a bonus for everyone who stays on. So keep your ears open, ready for that, because Scott and I will touch on that soon.
Secrets already. I love it. Let's do it. Okay, cool. So I want to, anytime we bring on guests, I do love to add a little bit of color. And I know we've had some great chats over the last few weeks as we've been planning this out. But a few things you need to know about DW. So as I mentioned, he is a VP of Sales at GetAccept. He is currently only 26 years old, which is a bit of an anomaly when you look at kind of the sales leaders and executives that are running a lot of organizations these days. So pretty interesting. Another really cool fact that kind of coincides with this title that we have going on today for this webinar is DW actually had the #1 LinkedIn post across all topics in 2017. So I think Elon had like the number 20 article. Bill Gates was sitting around 8 or 9. So pretty cool. And I'm excited to dive into that more later. But also been a guest on Ellen DeGeneres, so pretty cool. Fun fact there. Also been known to sport some ridiculous hats. I have seen them. They're awesome and slightly ridiculous. And a big thing, to bring the level of credibility to this webinar is it's also, that's all great, but you've built, a sales and marketing team as one of the first sales hires and helped them reach $100 million valuation. And this is when you're what, 2022, was it 23?
Yeah, 21, 22-ish around there.
That's crazy. And then the last fun fact there. So you've actually been banned from some startups in the Valley for unsanctioned cookies. Do you want to
Yeah.
explain a little bit there?
Well, I think there's a way to any man or woman's heart is always a warm cookie, and so I tend to bake cookies myself. Choc chips my favorite, or I buy some gourmet cookies and I take them in to kind of broker those first meetings. And two startups who you all would have heard of if you're in software formally have me on the do not admit list at the front desk because I've been so persistent with delivering different batches of cookies. So, but for the two strikes, it's worked maybe 15 to 20 times. And so all those people who have had my cookies, you're probably on there. So let us know in the chat.
So yeah, if anyone's had unsanctioned cookies from DW, let us know. I actually, when I read that and we were talking about that, I thought it was like cookies in people's browser or something, which
Yeah.
I thought was like, oh, that's weird. But we're talking literal chocolate chip cookies to get
Yeah.
meetings. I love it.
So you
Awesome.
gotta do what you gotta do to get those meetings.
No doubt. All right. So yeah, I guess this is the question. So why are we here today? What are we diving into?
Well, firstly, I just wanted to look at the state of sales in general right now. And there's three key tenets that I'm feeling. The first is that we are placing heavier and heavier burdens on our SDR teams. I think the average amount of meetings that we're expecting is around 20 to 40. Would that sound right to you, Scott?
Yeah, that's definitely in my experience. And feel sorry for the 40 range people. That's a lot of meetings. That's a lot of meetings. But
Definitely.
yeah, I
So
would agree.
in the chat, let us know how many meetings that you're required to book. But I think moving on from that, AEs are expected to close 3 to 6x their salary roughly, which is also tough. And then at the same time, managers and sales leadership are looking to stay ahead of the curve. But it's really, really tough to find those strategies that can make your organization unique. Would you agree with that, Scott?
100%. So I've been an SDR, I've been an AE, and now, sales leader. And I think those are all, it's what you think about every single day. That's kind of the one track mind of the sales rep or sales leader right now, for sure.
Exactly. So those are kind of our expectations, and I've grouped them on the left. And then on the right-hand side, these are the realities that I think we all agree with. It's very difficult to expect an SDR to resonate with a C-level or a decision maker, especially if they're coming from another career path or they've just come out of college. I think that's super difficult. Uh,
Mhm.
Another part is it's hard enough to close this 3 to 6x your salary, let alone book 80 to 90% of your opportunities outbound. It's extremely difficult to do both.
Mhm.
And then I think another point is that sales looks quite similar across many markets. And the reason this is that leaders who get traction in companies like Salesforce or Oracle, who come down into the startup community or into smaller businesses, are bringing many of the same systems of sales in. So what this is meaning is that not only are reps getting tired because no matter where they move to, the job seems very similar, these leaders are getting tired because they're doing the same thing at every place and the results are starting to dwindle.
Mhm. Yeah, I agree. We're starting to see this kind of one size fits all. Everyone thinks they've, built the repeatable, scalable process and it will work in any industry, any size of organization, and it's just not the case for sure. And quickly, just bring this up before you move on. So we've got Kevin Burgos and Vilas Raw here. saying so their SDR teams are required to book 10 to 15 meetings, but that's sat meetings, so that are actually attended, not just booked. So kind of in the same spectrum
Wow.
that we're talking here.
And I think Vilnius is one of my Lithuanian friends dialing in. So Ačiū labai, or thank you in Lithuanian for coming on. So that's half my background, which is another funny fact.
Impressive. I didn't know that. You shock me every time I talk to you. I love it. I love it.
If we have any Japanese guests to give us a shout out, I'll say something in Japanese for you because that's rare as well.
I'm
So
on board.
moving on from this, what we can see that ties together most of those points is actually having effective outreach and cold outreach, because if you look at the key metrics for SDRs, AEs, managers, they're all the same. We need to be booking more meetings and having more quality meetings. So for today's presentation, we're going to focus on how do we actually increase the yield on our outbound activities. And the first topic we're going to look at is a scalable strategy for LinkedIn. And before we dive into anything, we really need to ask ourselves, why would we focus on LinkedIn? And I know, Scott, what do you think about these terms and the listeners out there, social selling and resume building? Does that seem like modern LinkedIn knowledge or something we've heard before?
Yeah, so those are the buzzwords we've heard for a long time. And it's funny as we see, I've seen this shift kind of as social selling has almost become like a dirty word for some of these like hardline sales pros that, swear by some of the older tactics.
Yeah.
And I think social selling definitely needs some positive PR if done in the right way. But yeah, how are you kind of changing this perception? Because you are.
I think that we need to focus on LinkedIn and get back down to basics. And I think there's four key points. The first, which I know we really agree on, is that we need to accept that reps and us ourselves are going to have non-productive time. We've been raised in recent years with Facebook and MySpace and all these online social media tools. So we're always looking for a way to distract ourselves, especially in the workplace. So what I think we need to do is, if we accept people are going to be doing this regularly at work, we need to create some productive time out of this activity that they're doing. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, 100% agree. And I think it's about a bit about just like you said, knowing it's going to happen, but make sure that when your reps are quote unquote wasting time on LinkedIn, they're at least accomplishing something, whether it's building their
Yeah.
business acumen or whatever it is, but don't just turn a blind eye to it because it's happening.
Agreed. The second point is that it's so hard to uncover relevant information, and one of the best sources is what people give away about themselves. And I think most people limit themselves in just looking and scanning a profile, but where the real information comes out is from what people comment, how they talk about themselves. And many people who reach out to me effectively study the way I communicate. So I think that only comes from following your prospects organically on LinkedIn. A third point is credibility, and having a strong LinkedIn is more akin to those older social selling points that we hear over and over again. But credibility is so important, especially as the world population grows and you mature in your career. You need to seem like you've done some elements of the things that you're trying to delve down into in your business ventures. And the final point is, this can start World War III on Sales Hacker right now. But phone, email, Twitter, I don't care what you say, they are declining in terms of the user engagement. It's increasingly hard to penetrate those methods of communication. That being said, they still work and you can still get good results, but this gives you another option to fight that sea of noise.
I love it. And one thing I love this point because I use it all the time is anytime I now go into a meeting with an executive, VP of marketing, VP of sales, they all typically have like talks that they've done. They have things on YouTube. They have things on LinkedIn So you
Yeah.
can actually watch for 15, 20 minutes this person deliver and speak. So you know, like, okay, do I have to bring the energy up? Are they high energy? Do I have to match them and slow it down? It can make that time that you spend together, maybe it's like 15 minutes you have, much more effective, and you guys can communicate way better. I do this all the time, and it's super helpful.
Definitely. And one common story I have from when I was in the field is that I was going to meet a CEO of a 200-person company. And to be honest, I couldn't find much about the company at all. When I watched a video that that CEO gave as a presenter at a university close to the San Francisco here, I got so many insights that completely changed the way I thought about that person. And in fact, there were so many anecdotes that I was able to incorporate them into my pitch. And so I couldn't advocate enough to kind of deep dive when you're doing that research because it shines through, doesn't it?
Totally.
So,
Absolutely.
given that we all believe and we should believe that LinkedIn is an important a channel, sorry, what can we do to kind of boost our presence on LinkedIn? And this is my results from last year on one of the most successful posts, which thank you for mentioning, Scott. And
Hmm.
this is something that all of you can do. There's nothing special about me other than the hats, which Scott joked about. Um, this was all through hard work, and let's look at how I accomplished this on this next slide here. So these
Just
are some of
quickly, what did you do with those 56,000 likes?
oh man, that was a tough situation for me to do. I really thought about reaching out to every single one of them. It got to a point where it was just impossible.
Hmm.
So right now, before bed, every now and then, I try and reply to some of the thousands of comments, but there's still too many per day.
Crazy. So you get notifications still to this day, multiple tens,
Yeah.
hundreds? Crazy.
Yeah, I get thousands, in fact, per week still. So it's still trending.
That's crazy.
Um,
You need to get some VAs or something to help you out.
Yeah, well, there's actually a strategy we can talk about at another webinar about how to
All right.
utilize those, but it's definitely was a surprise and still is. But
Very cool.
given that that article popped, so to speak, or went viral, um, these are some points which you all can implement to start working on this LinkedIn presence. So for me, I actually sat down and made a verbal commitment that I would write one article every business day for 30 days. And I thought if I did that and the results were good, then I'd continue the project. And here we are today. So if any of you sit down and make that commitment to yourself, that's the first step that you need to do. Um, the second step is that I studied posts that had between 300 to say 2,000 likes. So posts that had been successful but may have not gone that next step of going viral. And what I did was then study that content and figured out if I could give it more depth and breadth based on my experience. Does that make sense to you, Scott, and the viewers out there?
Yeah, totally. I constantly have questions coming up. Like, how did you keep the quality top notch when you're pumping out an
Yeah.
article a day? What kind of standards did you set for yourself, and how did you accomplish that?
Yeah, there's probably 2 points. So one of those points touches on the next point I was going to talk about, which is you know, in this day and age, you see many people trying to self-promote and they're trying to encourage their network to engage with their content, usually by doing brute force mass emails that say, you know, like our content, like our article on X. Um,
Hmm.
what's really important is letting the market decide, just like an economic sense. Put that content out there. If it doesn't perform, if it does perform, use those insights to then develop the next bit of content. Because if you're artificially boosting the likes with people who already like you, then that's not a fair measure of performance, is it? Uh,
Yeah.
then the second thing is consistency is super important, but I would forward the content to industry leaders who I respected and also people who have a good command of the English language, and I'd get them to sub edit things. And often I'd find that particularly with my Australian accent and way of speaking, I can differ to others. So that was really good to help me standardize the way I was writing.
I like it. So don't necessarily strive for perfection right away. Like let the market and the
Yeah.
response that you get from the community or the audience that you're building kind of mold and morph the content you're creating. Is that right?
Correct. And just set that benchmark really low to start. Aim for 10 likes and 2 comments. And then maybe in 2 weeks, aim for 20 likes and 4 comments. You want to see that almost linear progression before you get that crazy curve, which we all want, which is the viral curve.
Mhm.
And
And
I think, yeah, go ahead.
yeah, sorry. This is a super relevant question, so I wanted to get it in. So we have Peter DaCosta here, and Peter's saying that's awesome. For those of us who have full-time jobs in tech and sales, one article a day is quite a bit of time taken out of the day, especially if you're keeping it fresh.
Yeah.
You did have a full-time job in sales and tech at the time that you did this experiment, correct?
Oh yeah, I mean, anyone who says they don't, one article is between 100 to 300 words. Stay small. And so if you have time to watch TV or think about the useless activities you might do in the day, you can really carve out 30 minutes to an hour to pump out one of these pieces. And even if you don't have the time, what I'm going to talk about in that course, which we mentioned, is all of you as viewers of this webinar are going to get my content blueprint for actually starting your own LinkedIn right from scratch. So don't feel overburdened by this amount of content, because I'm going to help you and give you a head start.
Wicked.
So the next idea is get an app for remembering your ideas. I use Wunderlist, but there's many others like Evernote. And what you want to do is you want to write your ideas for every post at all times. And I've been talking to many AEs and SDRs who've actually turned their careers around of late by following just this point, because the difference between being a successful LinkedIn advocate and not is just putting in that effort. So if you have a good idea, jot it down in this list. The final point is make sure, and I've given you too many points here, but try and have each article having 3 points only. And what you want to do is have a conclusion that provokes the reader into sharing an opinion. This could be a statement that is actually bold. It could be a question that's quite pointed, but I call this the Trident formula. So you combine 3 points with a provocative conclusion. And if you follow that, the human mind will be more inclined to share it and to react to it.
Yeah, definitely. And this is why we see so many cold calling is dead articles, because it provokes a response from people.
That's
so
right.
Please don't use that one. Don't use it against it. But.
That being said, I do have one in the works for the next couple of weeks. So look out for that, guys, on LinkedIn. But moving on from this point, here's what Scott and I were talking about. I put together a free 5-week sales mastery course where we're going to go into more detail on some of those points, but I know it's hard to get started. So if you visit this link, info.getaccept.com/saleshacker, you can actually sign up, and I'll share more about how to get started in detail. So Scott, this is our next point, right? How do we actually turn these connection requests into meetings?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that how many times have you got I know we were joking about it last week, but those messages that say, I'm here to expand our network, or we have X number of mutual connections. Does that resonate with you all out there, those messages?
Definitely with me. I think I looked right before this, and there was about 47 of them that were just looking to broaden their horizons and expand their network.
Exactly. Yeah. So let's be honest to ourselves. Let's not hide from the truth. Our goal is to turn connections into meetings, but you can't be this upfront. Our prospects know that. They know our intentions. They're educated decision makers. So they know that a harmless connection request is actually a little more. What we're doing to exacerbate this problem is we're asking for meetings so quickly. I think Scott as well, and the audience out there, how many people add you on LinkedIn and either in that connection request or in the first message they ask for a meeting, right? Have you experienced that?
Absolutely. Yeah. On both sides of the track here. So
Yeah,
definitely it happens and in a buyer perspective, people
yeah,
prospecting me all the time. And then kind of a quick side note, so kind of confession time for me, because I've actually been guilty of this before, kind of just jumping the gun a little bit, because it can be easy to do. You know, I actually, funnily enough, did this to you a number of months back. I had read some of your stuff. I had learned about Get Accept. I thought that, you know, we should get you in front of the Sales Hacker community. And I hit you up and fairly quickly about getting involved. And I think for me, which I think is pretty common, I fell into this trap that a lot of sales folks do. And it's about being kind of overconfident, or you know, we all believe, or you should anyway, in your product and service so much, and you forget that this person that you're reaching out to honestly probably has no clue about your product or service, doesn't care how great you think it is, and so you kind of jump that gun. Luckily, I had the wherewithal to pull back from our immediate interaction. We let it simmer for a while. You know, then we met again at Revenue Summit. You know, picked the convo back up, ate some delicious Indian food together, had too many old fashions, and then here we are. But I think the point there is that there is no shortcut to trust. You know, sometimes the only thing that you can do to build trust is just being consistent, and then just time. Like that, sometimes people need time to build that. But
I
anyway, that
agree.
was an aside from me.
And Scott, thanks for taking us down memory lane. It was a good night at the Indian restaurant. I'm not sure about the amount of old fashions I had. I think I was trying to keep it restrained for once. But what we went on was kind of like a date in a way, right? We kind of did an interaction together to get to know each other more. I think LinkedIn is exactly like dating. If we look at this picture here, we have way too many people trying to proposition a man or a woman. They're all trying to do it in the same way, and they're all being too hasty. They're saying, hey, can we jump all the way to the end now and grab a meeting without trying to build value? So this is a phenomena that I think we'd all agree happens every day. And when we try and explore a solution to this, we hear most sales leaders go, oh, well, you have to personalize, you know, the answer's in personalization. But even if you do research and you follow them diligently, like we talked about, it's so tough to create something that will resonate. I think it's just an absolute hit and miss battle. So for me, what I want to control and what I want to conduct is creating an unforgettable first impression. I think if I can do anything, that's my sole focus. So what we're going to talk about now is how I do this and how you can 3x the number of meetings you're booking using this strategy. Sound good?
Love it.
So this is a did you know moment. When you submit a LinkedIn connection request now on LinkedIn, it actually supports using links. So what I'm going to do is show you how that actually manifests today. And if we see this screenshot, this is me prospecting to Elon Musk. And what I have done is I've shared something in common, but then I've actually baited Elon to look at what I've sent. So I've said I wanted to share a little more inside this experience, and you can see this link that I've inserted. When I send this connection request now, look at what it looks like on Elon's end. Can you all see that?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So
Awesome. And
right
this
now,
isn't saturated yet, right? You don't see this. I don't see this.
I
anywhere.
haven't seen it yet. Now we'll probably see it. Well, how many people live now? A couple hundred. So we'll probably this technique may have seen its day, but this is part of me coming on to give you these tips and tricks. So people click things that have their own logo in it, and that play button it makes them super curious. So when you send this through and they click it, what you can do is create this custom experience for them to view, which can strengthen your message and kind of create that instant rapport. So how we actually create these experiences, we don't have enough time. We've already got so much to get through. But I am going to show you how to do this if you jump onto the course here at info.getaccept.com/saleshacker. And Scott, you've been a recipient of this too. There's some other special magic that happens when they click, doesn't it?
It definitely does. I remember being quite taken aback at the kind of direct channel of communication that was able to form. It's pretty cool stuff.
So we'll show you what you can actually create and how it's better than anything you're currently doing to kind of get their first bit of attention. The next thing we're going to talk about is a cold email play which works. And why this cold email play is relevant is what happens when someone doesn't accept your contact request. You've tried. Are you guys familiar with the fact that you can withdraw a contact request too?
I didn't even know that.
Yeah, so what you can actually do is if someone doesn't accept your contact request, you can withdraw it and then you can send it again with a different message and keep trying to nurture them to take that.
How many have you sent Elon now?
Oh, Elon's had a few, but I think he's an impossible prospect for me right now. But let's say even if they do accept, most people just never reply, and especially if you're committing that cardinal sin of asking for a meeting, you've pretty much shot yourself in the foot, haven't you?
Mm-hmm.
So what we need to do is call in the cavalry. You know, can managers help us more to penetrate these accounts than what we normally focus on? And in my opinion, the answer is yes. This play works really well and is dependent on a couple of things. So you need a manager with a good title and who's willing to run this play for you, or you can access their email account if they're generous. Then you need to use the following template. You need to get 2 lines of research, one for you and one for your manager to use. You need to find a personal interest you share in common, and you need to find a company name and or a job title of that prospect when they were in the initial stages of their career, and you'll see why in a second. And finally, you need to have some guts. You need to believe that out of the ordinary is extraordinary in sales, and that these unique approaches work. If you keep doing conventional tactics, that's not going to be successful, is it? So let's look at this play. So I've written to my boss here. I've given him the email address and the subject line, executive outreach, which I've tested works phenomenally. And then you can see that we use the first bit of research to help my CEO have some relevance. Then secondly, we use a personal empathy line. So I'm sure you understand what it was like trying to secure meetings at your early days at PayPal. And so then we frame the fact that the rep, which is you, has showed great initiative reaching out to both the internal leadership and also the prospect. And then you insert a second bit of research that we mentioned. And then finally, you bring together your common interest, and then you CC, you ask your boss to CC you on this email. And Scott, I know we both believe in this, right?
100%. Yeah, just for some further validation, I ran a very similar play to this. As I told you before, your template's better than mine for sure. But we ran a similar touch. We had some high value partners at my last organization that we wanted to get in front of. And so we created this cadence, and one of the cadences, one of the touches, was our CEO jumping in and sending something from his email. And we would just simply, we also found, I don't know if you do this, DW, but we found it, we would send it on the same thread. So we'd actually get like the BDR to send the thread, the whole thread to the CEO or executive, and they'd send it out through theirs on that one, so they could kind of see also how persistent you've been, while also getting an executive touch kind of thing. So
Yeah,
had a ton of success.
I personally do it clean,
Yeah.
but I'll forward the thread if I want to keep creating further touch points. What I felt is that if you combine this email with maybe one follow up 24 hours later, you'll generally get 8 to 20% response rate, dependent on the industry and whether the email's valid. Um, so what you could use your technique for is to create another touch point, say referencing the thread or something you learned,
Yeah.
um, which
Yeah.
I think is fantastic. So this template, don't worry if you didn't grab the screen. I'll send you the raw file for this template by signing up to this course. And there's also a couple of other favorites that I have that you may be surprised, but trust me, they work. And I'm sure there's many people in the chat who are actually my old clients who they worked on as well. So can't wait to share more of those with you guys.
I love it. Gold.
Then,
Some
yeah,
gold here.
we'll see about that. I think the final point I wanted to touch on is this role of video, and video has been a big talking point, hasn't it, lately? I've seen a lot of buzz around this online.
Mhm.
Have you as well, Scott?
Totally. I think it's one of the big trends in sales right now. We've got like AI, we've got video. Those are, the things people are talking about right now.
Yeah, and what I've always said is that often you hear all the positives, but there's also room for people in the market to be a little more critical. I think that creates balance. And amongst all the raving about video that you've heard, there's really no one touches on the fact that video can actually worsen your chances of winning a deal if you make some of these critical areas. So one thing that I've seen, these overproduced and artificial videos, which have the person's name as a fake clipboard, or they have that green screen that looks like it was purchased for about $200 off eBay. Do any of those examples resonate?
It definitely with you see the blotchiness in the
Yeah,
background, and
all
you
that
can
stuff.
kind of see the background, and then half of it's like a beach scene, and it just doesn't make
Yeah.
sense.
And
Yeah.
even when they start talking, the content is so generic. They say stuff like, this is DW, I'm from GetAccept, we do this, it could be a great fit, let me know. And I'm like, come on, if you are going to send something like that, you really need to make it specific and cut through the noise. Um, and then one point which, I'll say these things, maybe I can get away with it because I'm a foreigner, but, the appearance, some people just don't like the way you look. Some people think that I don't look professional enough, for instance, because I haven't got my comb over haircut anymore, like the photo for this. But if your appearance doesn't suit, if you're selling into IT security and you don't have a suit on and you don't look a little bit older, for instance, you may actually hurt yourself sending a video, whether we like it or not. Um, and one final point is, I know, Scott, we both agree people have their different strengths. Some people are just not as good at doing these kind of exercises, and in fact are really solid at writing emails or presenting research. And maybe we shouldn't assume that video is something that works for everyone, right?
Definitely. Yeah. When I was leading an outbound biz dev team, we had people on my team that I knew could bang out calls all day, and that's how they could convert. I had people that would just send 6 beautifully crafted emails, and that was their thing. And then we had people video. So I don't think you should be like forcing me on any reps, because everyone has their strong suit for sure, and you have to play to
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, exactly. So let's say that we are going to do video. There's some key points that I'd really emphasize. The first is that we've been super generous with today's webinar. Thank you, Scott and Sales Hacker. But generally, anything good that you have to say should be said in 30 seconds or less. And to me, that's the attention window that you have with someone that you don't know. Would you agree? If you don't, let us know in the comments. But that 30 seconds is really your money time.
Yeah, definitely. I think time has kind of become a commodity these days. So, you're asking a lot when you're asking for anyone's time. So I
Yeah.
think 30-second blip is what you get to prove your worth and then prove that you deserve more time.
Exactly. And we hear a lot in sales about elevator pitching, and I think that's a good metaphor for video production as well. Try and keep it short, simple, and sweet,
Mhm.
triple S. And in that way, most people still do the bozo move as well in asking for a meeting, which we just spoke about is not the right strategy. What you want to do is you need to get a soft reply from them. You need to get them talking because evidence shows that after someone's replied to you, even if it's a yes or a no, they're actually 50% or more likely to reply again, which is way more than just getting a cold email response rate of 2 to 3%, right?
Definitely.
So what we want to ask them is something. Now, this is a question I often ask because I generally have some intelligence around whether or not someone's looking to purchase something at our company. But I often ask, I can see you're evaluating these types of solutions. Is there anything I can provide other than what I've shared with you, which could help in this process right now? Um, and many times I'll say no, or we're currently doing X, but I get some intelligence that I didn't have to help me plan my next step. And even if they opt in, then I know to prioritize that opportunity and to invest more time in it rather than just waiting. Um, uh, does that resonate with you, Scott? This trying to get a reply versus asking for that meeting, particularly for video?
Yeah, definitely. You're just trying to evoke. It's kind of similar to what we're talking about with content, right? You're just evoking emotion. You're evoking a response, and then
Yeah.
slowly over time, you can grow the commitment and the ask. I love it.
Yeah. Finally, I think one of the best things to focus on is not just doing a screen recording of yourself. I think that everyone is doing these right now, and that in sales, you have to be above the rest of the pack. You have to be doing what people aren't doing. And so there's plenty of different ways to send something that's not just a screen grab or not just you talking into a webcam. And so what we're going to do in the course is I'm actually going to assess some of the major tools for videos. One of them is an Australian one that I really like, and it allows you to send little bite-sized snippets that are super unique and super easy to create. But we're also going to show you a little bit about another tool which we have, which can also help you send more than just a personal recording, right? And it can allow you to send an experience that's fully interactive. So this is part of that course that I put together, and I think that will be helpful to everyone out there to kind of take their videos to the next level and stop just doing screen grabs and screen recordings.
Definitely. What are your views on subtitles? I feel like they're getting more and more to be like table stakes these days.
Yeah, I am fully in support of subtitles. I think if you are going to do one subtitle, you need to have a title for the video in the header and the footer of the video thumbnail.
Hmm.
If you don't know what we're talking about, maybe in the follow-up to this, I'll actually send that out to all of the attendees today so you can see. But if you're able to put that into your videos, it's super helpful because people are more likely to open them because they see some point of relevance.
Yeah.
However, actually making subtitles right now, I feel is a bit back to the earlier question we have. Time is money, and if you're still carrying a bag and carrying a quota,
Hmm.
you don't have time to do all these crazy strategies. That's what you should let your marketing team help you with. Um,
Right.
what I'll focus on is how you could make something much different from your peers in about 30 seconds to a minute. Again, I love that 30-second rule. Um, so, uh, because you need to be making these at scale, otherwise you'll run out of time.
Love it. Awesome.
So I guess what I wanted to do is I wanted to take as many questions as possible because these topics are so deep.
Mhm.
But I wanted to kind of summarize some of these key takeaways. So I think the first is that sales success, it's not automated, and it's not a solution where you can buy a piece of technology and everything's fixed. You need to focus your entire approach, whether it's an SDR, an AE, or a manager, on creating unique and quality outreach. If you do so, the results will come. It's a given. Um, Secondly, everyone, not just people that you see on LinkedIn who are active every day, anyone can rise to be someone who's engaging with on LinkedIn, and you can create content that really resonates with yourself and let your voice shine through. And I think everyone after today's webinar should feel empowered because, I'm an Aussie guy from the bush, and if I can do it, you can too. And so I want to help you get there. Um, the third is that this new link sharing feature is awesome, and I want to help you boost your yield on the connections by sending those examples. But this is something that no one's doing, so let's do more of that to help you get more meetings. The final fourth point, sorry, is that management should actually get hands-on. Tell me in the comments, but I see so many SDRs and AEs frustrated with their managers who don't actually take the time to step in and actually help in their day-to-day. Furthermore, many of the managers haven't done it for 5, 10, sometimes 15 years. So given that I've been there and still carry a bag here, get accept, I think that management should step up and help you run that play, which we talked about, to improve your cold outreach. And the last point is personal video needs to be done well. If you do not do it well, don't bother with it. Our analysis shows that it can be more harmful than good. So follow those positive points and then reflect on the fact that this technology needs to evolve. If you're not sending more than just a screen grab or a personal anecdote, then it's not going to be effective into the next year in sales. So part of that course, I'm going to reflect on how to actually send more than just a video like I spoke about. So that's the end of me talking formally on those slides. Now it's the fun part where we can answer some questions.
Love it. First off, thank you so much, DW, for all your insight and knowledge. Like I said, I always get a lot out of these conversations. And we got a ton of really good questions, so thank you, everyone. Before we get to that one, on one of our conversations earlier, planning out this webinar, you alluded to a birthday data hack that you had.
Yeah.
And I liked it. Can you share that with the sales hacker community? Or are you holding that one close to your chest right now?
No, I think let's give it away. For all the people that have stayed on, thanks for putting up with me for this amount of time. What you can do is, and there's a way to automate this, but for now, just manually, you can look up and dump the data in relation to the birthday dates of your contacts. So let's say you have a target account list of 30 to 40 accounts. What you should do is find the birthday of all those people. Mathematically, that will roughly indicate one birthday every 2 weeks. And if you're going to do a cookie drop, be careful because you'll get banned. But what you should do is create something handmade, a letter, even reach out with a more personal note and one of these experiences leveraging that birthday. Because you'll get that surprise factor, and everyone loves if you've remembered their birthday. I don't know if I've met anyone who complained about getting a gift on their birthday. So make sure that you leverage the LinkedIn data to do that. And even if it isn't their birthday, well, at least you tried. 70 to 80% of that data will be correct.
I love that one. And that's something I've never actually thought of. And I've racked my brain for as much creativity as possible. And I love that one. So basically going through your connection requests, exporting all the data around their birth dates, and then creating personalized cadences or sending gifts based on that information.
Correct. Yeah, that's the way to win.
Love it. Love it. All right, let's go to the audience here. So we have Regina Hilton, who I'm guessing is an SDR manager. What would you say SDRs are expected to book each month in meetings when there are very few inbound leads and brand recognition is very lacking? Does that change
Uh,
that 20 to 40 meeting that we talked about earlier?
it's such a tough, and I love that question. Please connect with me after. It's a pain point that I've experienced many times, and also as a consultant. And I feel that you've got to keep that bar at a minimum of 20. If you look at the basic economics of hiring an SDR, if you're not getting at least 20 meetings with a relatively good account or contract size, then you're in trouble. So you need to aim for those 20, but you need to differentiate yourself from the competition in new ways. And when a competitor is bigger or might have more customer proof than you do, you really need to leverage your early wins and get those people really a part of your family, because what you can do is connect them with those individuals earlier in the buying cycle to kind of accelerate the process of that deal going through. So, for instance, a large company may have lots of advocates, but they don't have the personal connection with them that you might have. Second and final point is get your reps to focus on the quality of service. And there's always a David and Goliath argument. We have it within our product right now as well. And so what we want to do is frame the competition as larger, but also inherently probably a little more laborious to get back on support requests, and also someone who's not going to be as hands-on. Whereas we want to come across as that business that really wants to get that work and that deal through. So yeah, focus on coming across as service orientated, and that'll help you a lot more.
I would agree for sure. Yeah, focus on the service, and then even so agile in a service sense and even a product sense. If you're a smaller organization and they need, integrations or certain things, you can play on that as well when you're going up against the big guys. But to bring it like kind of full circle to the question, like as far as an exact number of booking each month in meetings, I think DW, what do you think? It's got to be an iterative process, specific to each organization.
Yeah, I think that like I always say, how long's a piece of string? So, for instance, if you have 5 meetings and all 5 close and they're 100 grand a deal, then you're laughing. But from what I've seen, the average should be about 20, because given the volume of interactions, you should be operating around there. I
Yeah.
help my teams to double that, because I've come from a cold calling background where I was calling families in the evening and getting some of the biggest criticism I've ever received doing that job. And so I always say, if I can cold call people out of the phone book and book 4 or 5 meetings a night, then
Mhm.
you guys can do it in software or other more developed industries, because the buyers are easier to talk to than mums and pups at home wanting to watch television.
Yeah. I can get behind that. I won't go down the rabbit holes of all the things that were probably commented on when you when you were calling people at dinner time. But
Oh yeah.
yeah. Okay, so we got another awesome. Okay, so we've got Ellen wants to know. Okay, this is a really good question. How long should you wait before an ask?
That's superb. So one time where you should never wait is if you know that they're evaluating competitors. So, for instance, there's buyer insight data you can use on sites now like Trust Radius or G2 Crowd, where you can see that a customer is investigating your product, or you might pick up noise on LinkedIn. In that case, you should never wait. But I always, this is and I teach this and make a religion here, is you need to give, take. So you normally need to give 1 or 2 statements of value before you ask for something in return. And that may take a process of time, but say for instance you're talking with an executive like a CRO, and that's spaced over maybe 3-4 weeks, then the ask seems a little more organic, and they've also had time to see your posts and your content, and they pretend like they don't know you, but they really do.
Mhm.
Everyone remembers the same names and faces from LinkedIn. We just pretend we don't.
Definitely. Yeah, I would agree with everything there for sure. And then let's say if it's cold, let's say if you and just taking this a step further, let's say you're doing a cold outreach on LinkedIn, this person that you really want to talk to, they accepted your request. What's kind of your play from there? Is it just staying in front of them, showing that you're worthy of their time eventually? Is it okay, like down the line, to have an ask, or what are your thoughts there?
Yeah, so I'm going to be running the play which we talked about, which is sending them that thumbnail, which they're going to click on.
Yeah.
And then a little bit of a hint, and I didn't talk about it in too much depth here, but a video will pop up with some other features and create a really amazing experience if you
Yeah.
follow the steps in the course that we're going to look at. But let's
Mhm.
say that we don't have that technology at our disposal. What I think the best thing to do is to really ask a question that gets a short reply. That's all you need to do. So if you're connecting with someone, one example could be, hey, someone on my team has been speaking with X. Are you familiar with that conversation that's been happening? If not, I'd love to bring you up to speed via email. And see, that's a soft opt-in because they probably will say no, but they'll agree to the context because everyone's curious. And then you
Mhm.
get that opt-in for communication. Then if they don't reply again, what you can do is screenshot that as proof of them saying, oh, I'm happy to receive more info. And then you can share that with their boss or their boss's boss down the line. And you can say, oh, but Scott requested that I get in touch. And then you use the screenshot. Um,
Love it.
so that will work.
Very cool. Thank you. And Regina Hilton just wanted to thank you for answering her question. She deals in enterprise messaging and she's looking forward to speaking with you. She's going to be sending you an email. So thanks again,
Fantastic.
Regina. All right, so this is a great question, very kind of pointed, and we kind of talked about it in your last answer a little bit, but this is from Charlie Murillo, and so he says our company has no marketing, and our his sales leader wants 15 meetings a month. How can I market without sounding so salesy and avoid asking for a meeting on the first email contact? We are using LinkedIn as a marketing tool now. What would be the best first post to get prospects to know us?
Yeah, so I think that what you have to let go of is, so when we talk about your needs, right? Your need is that you need to book 15 meetings, but the prospect doesn't care. So when you come across as being needy, what happens in life in general? People don't want anything to do with you, right?
Mhm.
So what is very important is to build confidence and acumen in your specific target industry. So that doesn't necessarily mean talking about the product itself that you have. Let's take this very chat, for example. My solution in many ways helps sales teams. So it's strategic for me to come up with content that helps salespeople because I need to build trust and credibility. So in that same way, you need to focus on creating content, even if it's one example that is enlightening to a potential prospect that you have. And if you have no marketing team, unfortunately, that burden is on you to make that first piece. And all the best reps that I know of do their own thing to stand out in deals. So the summary of that point is you need to make content which resonates on an industry level. And the more you do that, the more you'll come up as someone who's educated on the solution, not just a transactional salesperson. So now people ask me in meetings, oh, you have a team of 25, 30 people in your sales team. how do you look at this, or how do you run this? So that's the kind of conversation that you want to elevate yourself to. But connect with me privately, because I can provide you some more advice. It's tough to know without knowing a few more details, but I hope that helps.
Love it. Yeah, great question, Charlie. And yeah, it's about kind of just throwing value, specific to an industry or title that you're going after, before asking for anything back, for sure. I love that answer. All right, DW. Well, I think we could probably sit here and talk for the next 5 hours. Unfortunately, that is our time. I want to thank you so much for coming on, sharing all your knowledge. You have so much sales and marketing knowledge to share. I love picking your brain, and make sure you guys get on this course. I know, not even kidding. I'll be on that one without a doubt. Again, thanks, my man.
No worries, and thanks everyone for tuning in. It's an honor, and as I say, ABC times 2. Always be caring and always be closing.
I love it. And on that note, thank you so much. Have a wonderful day, everyone.